soloing over the changes of How Insensitive. Another chart I'm performing in my upcoming recital. I played the melody, but I don't want to get into a copyright infringement tango with Joe Beam's estate. This is bass case 028 singing. I'm Phil. What would a bass player and bass instructor be talking about singing for? When I first started playing, I would sing the lines I was playing. I talked to a couple people about it, and they didn't know anything. To them, it was, okay, whatever. And then I went to music school and had to sing in oral skills, the ear training class, and this was really difficult at first, being an instrumentalist and a bass player. I hadn't done a lot of singing in front of people. And for those not in the know, if you're not in music school or haven't been to music school, those ear training classes they're called sight singing ear training classes. So you do a lot of singing out of a book, and we had to sing, individually, right? Lines out of the sight singing book, and there were a couple 8 bars, 16 bars, and they'd give them to you to work out, but sometimes you had to sing them cold, and it was real difficult the first couple semesters for me and the other instrumentalists. But the more that you did it, like everything else, I got over it. I got over my discomfort, and I started figuring it out, and it was good for me. And there is a reason it's a 2-year component of music school. You've got to take 4 semesters of theory, and concurrently you've got to take 4 semesters of sight singing ear training. And it was to build the skill of reading a line, like off a piece of a music, like a bass chart or a lead sheet, and hearing it in your head and being able to sing it. Much like we would be reading a passage from a book, and reading it out loud. Well, reading it down, but without the instrument in your hand, knowing how it sounds. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand about reading music, is that the music training that you go through, particularly in your first couple of years, 2 or 3 years of undergrad, is that you spend a lot of time working these things out. And the reality is that you've got to hear something. I mean, really hear it before you play it. Everything works better that way. You've got to know the shape of the line, the contour, the right rhythm, the right notes. I was listening to a podcast last week in which a bass player was discussing steps to take in learning a piece of music, And the first was to listen to a recording. So if you were learning recordame, I've done that on an earlier episode, that you want to listen to the recording. I mean, it sounds obvious, but it's something that so many people miss. In my combo class, on their course page, are all the recordings and the play-alongs too. But she said that the first step was listening to a recording, and I think that's great advice. And at some point, I think I'm going to do an episode over the type of listening that you should be doing. But think about it. If you're listening to a recording of a bass line or a bass solo or a head or a walking bass line, why not sing along with it? I mean, you're already there listening to it. Add the singing once you've gotten comfortable with it. The lines that you can sing, without the recording, right? And even to some extent with the recording, those are your lines. You have them at that point. Even if you haven't played them on the bass, they're going to come off better. They'll come together faster. And if you know how it sounds, if I'm singing, now's the time. Da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 do do be do ba do dee do dee do do. If I was just learning that, but I could sing it, the wrong notes and rhythms while I'm practicing it on my instruments will make themselves apparent immediately. you'll get all this under your fingers faster, and that's good. You know, everything that we want to do, we want to do it as efficiently as possible in learning it. You know, you don't want to hunt and peck for the notes and rhythms, right? And moreover, you know, being able to sing the line, it stays with you longer. I mean, meaning the periods that I don't play, now's the time, even though I've played that head probably a couple 100,000 times. You can refresh it and yourself by singing it. Ba-doo-ba-dum-dee-ba-dum. Ba-doo-ba-dum-dee-ba-dee-dum. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-dee-ba-dum. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dum. So what, right? I did an episode on that, and I've got a video out of me playing that line, but singing it, I've internalized it. You know, dee-doo, dee-da, ba-doo, ba-dee-dum, ba-doo, ba-dee-da, ba-doo, ba-dee-dum, ba-doo, dee-da, ba-doo, ba-da-doo, ba-doo, dee-da, ba-doo, ba-da-doo, dun-doo-doo-da. You know, the recorder may intro. It's built in. It's in my system now. You know, probably in the genetic code. But being able to sing it, I own it now. I can play it. I can refresh myself because I'm not really relying on muscle memory anymore. I've got it in my head how it's supposed to sound, and if I play the note wrong, I know I've got something wrong in the mechanics, but inside I know what's right. You don't have to have a good singing voice. You don't even have to sing in tune, at least at first, but sing the lines. I remember one of my first students, he was like a 9th grader, 10th grader, something like that, and he was a bass player starting to play bass, and I remember saying something about singing the lines, and I remember the way he looked at me in shock. You know, he wasn't going to be singing any lines. You had to get over yourself to do that. It was real good when we were doing that in music school. You know, we were singing, you know, pieces of Bach chorales and folk tunes out of that Bob Ottman's book. And then I started trying to put it to, you know, real life applications. You know, I'm real big in my theory classes when I teach those of taking the material out of the book and saying, well, where do you see this? So I started singing, you know, bass lines, heads, and solos, and everything came together. It made more sense to me, you know, and I'm mostly singing them to myself. But as a teacher, you know, I have to sing lines to my students, you know, whether I'm in rehearsals for the jazz ensemble or rehearsals for the combo or in my studio teaching bass players, I'll sing the line. So sing them. Sing it when you're learning them, you know, sing them. It's a very good passive learning technique, and passive learning techniques mean, and for the most part, that you don't have the instrument in your hand. So, you know, play it in your car and sing the line. If you're trying to learn something, make sure that you take some time to sing it. Don't miss those chances. You don't have to have your instrument in your hand. So sing while learning them, and sing while playing them, while you are playing them, and you will not regret that. It'll make everything move faster. Next time, I'll talk to you.